Anime characters have some of the best physiques imaginable, and in this video I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do to build that heroic, godlike physique with simple exercises and basic training methods. First up, we have to ask the question, what exactly makes anime physiques so damn impressive? Well, I've boiled it down to 3 different factors. Number 1, muscularity. You won't find any great anime physique where the person isn't at least somewhat muscular. Now that could be like a lean muscularity, that could be a massive muscularity. It really just depends on the style that you want to go for. But factor number 2 is what actually gives that muscularity the overall shape so that they don't just look like a big ball of muscle, so that they actually have more of that anime superhero style of physique. And that factor is the V-taper. And according to scientist Mino Henselman's recent research, 1.6 is the golden ratio for a V-taper. What does that mean exactly? That means if you take the measurement of your waist and you take the measurement of your shoulders should be about 1.6 times that of your waist. And that is the golden area. And just so you know, it's going to be really hard to get that, but with the right training program and this next factor, it is definitely achievable. Factor number 3 in achieving an anime style of physique is that you have to be lean. So it's that overall leanness. And Mino Henselman's also states that 12% body fat is about the ideal to strive for. Now that's obviously going to depend on your genetics and your goals and everything, but I would say anywhere from about 10 to 15% and you're going to be looking really good. Your muscles are definitely going to be visible at that point and your V-taper is going to stand out a lot more. So we have our 3 factors, but how do we actually obtain them? Let's break them down one at a time, starting with muscularity. And speaking of building your muscularity, if you want to know the exact blueprint and get a full training program with training tutorial videos to help you get there, then check out my brand new ebook that just launched. It's linked in the description, and for the first 50 people to get it, it will be $10 off, and I'll personally email you and you can ask me any questions that you have about your training. So make sure to scoop that up in the link below. Okay, so muscularity, how do we actually gain muscle? This can actually be accomplished through a variety of training methods, but the best is through weight training with hypertrophy style methods. So what does all this jargon actually mean? So if you actually break down your workouts into sets, reps, and intensity, we can pinpoint the ranges that actually are probably going to be best for you. So let's start with sets. How many sets on each exercise per week do you need to be doing? Turns out you want to aim for about 5 to 10 sets on average for most of your muscle groups. This will actually help you maintain and even gain on a lot of those muscles. Now, if you want to really hyper focus on some of those muscles, like we'll talk about in just a bit to create that V-taper, then you might want to take them up just a bit, like 10 to 15 and maybe even up to 20 sets a week, depending on the time that you have. And in terms of reps, we're going to want to stay in somewhere around a 5 to 30 rep range. And in terms of intensity, you want to be pretty close to failure throughout your mesocycle of training. You want to start just a little bit lighter. Think of something like a 7 out of 10. Then you want to build up to like an 8 out of 10, a 9 out of 10, then a 10 out of 10 for peak week. If you can push into another peak week, that would work really well too. And then after that, make sure to deload. And of course, in my ebook, I go into way more detail on exactly how to do this, but that's the general overall structure. So we have all of these parameters for our training, but that begs the question, which exercises should we actually be focusing on? This leads to our second factor, which is the V-taper, and specifically the exercises to help you get that V style of physique. To achieve this, you really need to tailor your training to focus on 4 specific muscle groups. The first is the most aesthetic muscle group, the shoulders, the delts. This is what's really going to help you create that shelf at the top of the V-taper. Then you can narrow it down from there. So with these delts, focus on your lateral delts specifically. Some of my favorite exercises for these include the dumbbell lateral raise. When you do this, go up to at least parallel, if not past it. And then I always like to have the cue of like having your arms slightly in front of you instead of right at your side, because sometimes people have like shoulder issues and that can bother them. So just have your arms slightly in front of you when doing that. And then another exercise you can do is the cable lateral raise. This is one that I've been personally spamming over the last few years, and I've seen tremendous growth in my own delts. And the great thing about cable lateral raises is that you can really do them from any height. You can start with them up high and bring them down low. You can start down low and bring them up high. Most people will probably benefit most from having the cables at about hip height and then bringing them up from there. And you can do these 2 arms at a time or 1 arm at a time. It just really depends on your preference. So that's the shoulders, but we can't just stop there. To really build an aesthetic physique, we have to have really good arms. And with those arms, we have to focus a lot on the biceps and the triceps specifically, and you could totally do forearm work as well if you want to. I find that my forearms just grow naturally from some of my other training, so I don't really have to specifically work on them quite as much. But if you want to, you could throw in some wrist curls, some wrist extensions, things like that. Super easy exercises, and you could just add this in at the end of pretty much any training day. So one of my favorite exercises for the biceps is the dumbbell incline curls. The reason I love these is because you get a really deep stretch in those biceps as they go behind your body and really stretch out, and then at the top you get a really good squeeze. Also, you're seated, so you're really stable. You can't use any body momentum in getting those dumbbells up. So if you've never tried those before, definitely make sure to do that for your biceps. And then for the triceps, one of my favorite ones is the overhead tricep extensions. You can do this with a dumbbell, you can do it with a cable. Both of those work really well. I prefer the cables personally. It's just an easier position to get into, and it just feels really good on the triceps. And if you use the rope, you can hit them both at the same time. All right, so the third muscle that you're really going to want to focus on is the chest. You've got to have a good armor-plated chest, and one of the best ways to do this is just through building your bench press. I know it's old school, but you've never seen someone that can bench 225 that has a really small chest. They're going to have a good-sized chest, and that goes for anything beyond that 225 mark. So make sure to build up your bench, and you'll build up your chest as well. And if you don't have access to a bench, or you need something that's more like body weight exercise, try deficit push-ups. This is actually one of my favorite exercises for really building overall chest mass. And with these, you get a full range of motion, one that you actually don't get on the normal bench press. And you can overload this by adding a backpack or a weighted vest to make them harder if you're maxing out your 30 rep range. And then the fourth muscle group to really build that V-taper style of physique, you would think it would be abs, and you can definitely work your abs. I definitely recommend it because that will help them pop. But actually even more so, it's to work these muscles back here, your lats and your back in general. Because whenever you flare out like this, you can see the lats popping out, and then just assuming that you're lean enough, you'll have a smaller waist and it'll naturally give you that V-taper. So what exercises work best for the back? Well, I always recommend a horizontal row and a vertical row. So starting with a horizontal row, deficit barbell rows are going to be your go-to exercise. Now, of course, you could choose any exercise that you want that hits these same muscle groups, and it's going to work really well, but these are the ones that I find to be the most efficient overall. Deficit barbell rows are a great exercise for really hitting the bulk of the back, especially those lats, those traps, those rhomboids, all of those muscles across the whole back. Make sure you're going all the way down, and you can even slightly round at the bottom as long as it's controlled, and then go all the way up, arch your back, and get a good squeeze at the top. Then for our vertical pulling motion, I'm going to add in the good old-fashioned pull-up. Whenever you do these, you can do them any way you want. It can be a chin-up, it can be a normal pull-up. I would prefer actually normal pull-ups with a wide grip, overhand grip. These are like legit pull-ups. Go all the way down, all the way up, chin over the bar, and make sure you get a good squeeze in the back at the top and a good stretch in the back at the bottom. A full range of motion on all of these exercises is really going to be key for efficient muscle growth. So now we have the muscularity, and we've placed that muscle in the right parts to give us more of that V-taper look. But it'll never show if we're not low in body fat percentage. We could have those first two factors and look like a powerlifter and strongman, which is a very viable look as well, but not quite the anime style of physique that we want to focus on for this video. This then leads us into the final factor that it takes to get that ideal anime hero style of physique, which is being lean. To be lean, you have to hone in on 3 specific points. Point number 1 is your calories. I know, everyone always says calories in versus calories out, but that's for a reason. It is true. It's just science, it's thermodynamics. So if you need to gain muscle, then you're gonna wanna have a hypercaloric diet. You're gonna wanna take in more calories. If you need to lose body fat, then you're gonna need to take in less calories, called a hypocaloric diet. So you've got to really watch your calories. And to help you do this, I recommend downloading a calorie tracking app like MacroFactor or MyFitnessPal or something like that. Point number 2 to hone in on is the specific types of calories that you're having. You're going to want to make sure that you're having enough protein, especially to build that muscle if you need to, or to maintain it while you're losing body fat. The general recommendation is anywhere from 0.7 to 1 times your body weight in grams of protein per day. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you'll have 200 grams of protein per day. So you have to make sure you're having plenty of that. And then you want to have enough carbs around your workout to make sure you're maintaining your energy throughout training. And then the final point with nutrition is your lifestyle. Everyone has different limitations, different nutritional limits that they can have or can't have, different lifestyles, whether you go to school, you go to work. You have to think about balancing your energy. Like if you have to get up early for school, you have school all day, you have practice after school, you have homework after that. It can sometimes be really, really hard to not only get your workout in, but also to eat healthy during those times. So it's important that you figure out what works best for you and your schedule. There's not a cookie cutter diet that's a one size fits all for everybody. For me personally, thinking about cravings, I have a lot of cravings at night, so I save most of my calories for the night. And in the morning, I'll just have a protein shake, protein coffee, a small lunch, and then I'll save most of those bigger calories for later in the day. But it really just comes down to individuality and what works best for you. Plan your nutrition around your days and around your cravings and your limitations. On top of eating right, you'll want to make sure that you're resting and recovering properly through a full night's sleep, proper training breaks, and other factors. If you want to learn more about this as well as everything you need to know to get in great shape with a specific training program, then make sure to check out that ebook that I mentioned linked down below. Let me know in the comments down below which anime physique would you most like to achieve. Good luck training, and I'll catch you in the next video.